Consideration of the trade of real property between East Elkhorn Ranch, LLC, Casper Redevelopment Company, LLC, and the City of Casper. Mr. City Attorney.
Your Honor, I have two exhibits to enter into the record of this case. Exhibit number 1, correspondence from Ms. Becker to John Patterson, dated March 9th, 2015. And exhibit number 2, the affidavit of publication as published in the Casper Star Tribune, dated March 17th, 2015.
Thank you. Mr. Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mayor, members of the council, seldom does the City Council get to do something as exciting as this opportunity this evening to take two parcels, remnant parcels that the city owns that aren't on tax rolls, that are just fallow fields, and take those off the tax rolls, put them into beneficial use by private hands, and then secure for the future of the community property that is needed for recreation and for our riverway cleanup and the health of the river. The two parcels that the city owns, one is just off the corner of Poplar and Collins. It's a long, skinny piece that by itself is an uneconomical remnant. Could not be used for anything of value. Has to be combined with other properties adjacent to. The other parcel that the city has is up near the Central Wyoming Counseling Center, up in North Casper near the event center, and it too is a parcel that is just lying vacant at this point in time, and real no economic use from the city standpoint. The two parcels that you can preserve for the future are 200 acres up on top of the mountain adjacent to the county-owned 40 acres that would be the biathlon course. This 200 acres is contiguous to city-owned property where the Bear Trap Campground is up on top. If you do that hairpin turn and go back up on top there near the towers, the city owns all that land up there. It's maintained by the county. The trails that are cut in the wintertime on this 200 acres for Nordic skiing is done by the county, good folks. And those are great bike trails in the summertime too. This would preserve that 200 acres for public use forevermore. Wouldn't be turned into developments of 5-acre parcels, which was once contemplated. The other parcel is just down here, whichever way the river is, just down here, B&C Street. The street ends there as it enters, as adjacent to the river. This would be turned into, when the city owns it, into a park. There'll be a boat ramp there. There'll be a parking area for folks to come in and park their boat trailers, and after they've dropped their boat upriver. There'll be picnic tables and other amenities at that area. And it'll also provide connection to the downtown to the river. That'll provide a quick, easy access to connect the river to the downtown, and then hopefully the downtown eventually to the top of the mountain as we develop our trails system that has been presented or will be presented soon. So it's a pretty exciting opportunity. The property down at the B&C Street Ends is an area that is going to go through some modifications as that particular segment of the river is modified, as there's some work done as a part of the river revival project. That area will be modified structurally. Some of the bank work there will be done, but a wonderful opportunity to preserve forevermore that connection to the river. Piece up on top for biathlon and even today just for Nordic skiing and biking in the summertime, and to put on the tax roll those two parcels that the city has owned for a long time and has done nothing with. So this evening there's a public hearing to consider this, and it's council's decision to make. Very exciting.
And for the benefit of those present, since anytime we're involved in a trade, the valuation of the land that we are trading for or that we are placing in trade come into consideration. Could you talk a little bit about how those values have been determined?
Thank you, Mayor. An oversight on my part, I should have. The value of the property that the city is being transferred is $1.9 million. The property that we are providing is 1.7-ish. The $200,000 is a gift and donation from Nick McMurray, and something that he had previously agreed to and wanted to see the community have that $200,000.
Wish to speak in favor of the trade of real property to please approach the lectern. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Powell, members of the council. My name is Keith Tyler. My address is 421 South Center. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of both East Elkhorn Ranch and Casper Redevelopment. But I'm also speaking as an advocate for mountain use, mountain trails, and the quality and benefit of this trade to the community. So forgive me during my presentation if it kind of floats between one and the other. Earlier today, we paid our respects to, I think, one of Wyoming's greatest citizens, a man with great vision and generosity, McMurray. And while this matter comes before you as a swap, I think that doesn't tell the whole story. I'd like to give a little bit of history so you understand how the vision of Mick McMurray comes into play and how his generosity makes this possible. Without his involvement, this property was offered for sale back in the 2000 to 2006 period, and in around 2006, there was serious interest in buying the property by an out-of-state developer whose history was to buy large tracts of land and divide them into 40-acre tracts that circumvented the local subdivision rules and regulations. This was of great concern to a lot of us in the community as well as to Nick, and he stepped in and bought the property to prevent that from occurring. Nick's vision of the property was that a good part of it should be in the public domain because it provided such wonderful opportunities to enhance the public recreation and facilities on Casper Mountain. His generosity allowed us to work on that for close to 10 years. From 2006 to now, I've been working to try to come up with a plan that could bring part of this property into the public domain. The original property was a little over 1,000 acres. The piece before you and donated is 240 acres. Nick's generosity allowed us to cherry pick that 1,000+ acres. We're getting the absolute best part of that property. It's the part that's right next to East End Road. It has great access. It's the piece of property that lays best, has wonderful terrain. So the ultimate trade and gift will involve 240 acres. He's also, as Mr. Patterson pointed out, donating the difference in value of approximately $200,000.
Who else would like to come forward to speak in favor of this trade? Good evening.
Woody Giles, 290 East Magnolia, Paradise Valley area. I have here a memo to Patterson and whatnot, came out of your packet, dated January 13, and it has the assessment values of the 4 parcels. And it intrigued me, so I did a little research. And I'm going to start with the city parcel up by the event center on Wilkins. It was valued at $790,000 for the 3 acres, more or less. Because it's city land, the assessor has no values on it, so I went next door, and that land is valued at $51,000 an acre. So it's there's about a $300,000 fluff in the assessment. I think the city's going to make a good trade here, but I just thought this information would find it interesting. There's another parcel right down the street. It's actually a 4-acre parcel that the city's going to swap for 1.76 acres. And that was valued at $615,000 for the benefit of the trade, totaling up stuff. Well, the assessor says that that whole thing was only worth $209,000 for all 4 acres. And this thing says it's $615,000 for 1.76. It doesn't make sense to me. So the Collins piece is 2.6 acres, and that was valued at $937,000. And if you can get $937,000 for that strip, you got to take it. it's useless for anything else. The kicker on this that I found just totally amazing was the parcel on top of the mountain. And that's actually a piece of 1,150 acres. And then according to information, it's 200, and I guess there's the gift of 40, but I'm just dealing with the 200. And the assessor says that that land up, it's agricultural land, and they run cows on it. I thought that was amazing. But the assessor says the market value of that land is $80 per acre. And you're going to pay $6,500. So there's about a $1,285,000 worth of fluff if you're looking at market values. But and I've done this before, as you all know, city stocks in it, but it's not guaranteed. This is an opinion of price and not a certified appraisal of the market value of a property. If such appraisal is desired, the service of a certified appraiser must be obtained. So these assessments were just kind of...
And the first is the value of the mountain property, $6,500 per acre. And I don't know how, as our representatives, it seems to me you have a responsibility to figure out if that's a reasonable figure or not. And whether or not you've done that, I do not know. But I do know, or I'm fairly certain that parcel, that 200-acre parcel, was part of a bigger piece that was transferred about 5 years ago. I believe the McMurray interest bought that from a group of Casper investors that had a 1,200 or 1,400-acre piece. It was bought in the 70s and then resold 5 or 6 years ago. I think it'd be interesting to look at what that was sold for just 5 or 6 years ago. And it was a bigger piece, but I think it'd be interesting for you to know what the transfer price was at that time and compare it to $6,500 an acre, because that seems rather high. Another conservative point is the fire potential. The city owned a piece of property south of Crimson Dawn, 10 or 20 acres. I've mentioned that before. I believe that burned in the last fire. So the city obtained that, bought it for a certain value, and it's probably worth a lot less now with no trees on it. So I don't know if this plan has any fire mitigation procedures woven into it, but I certainly hope they would think about it, because the city's going to own 200 acres, and if a fire goes through there, it's not going to be worth $6,500 an acre. And I think you have a responsibility to try to protect our value if at all possible. I also would like to say, in terms of the process, and this was alluded to a little bit earlier, that these discussions have been going on since August of last year, August of 2014, but through all of last calendar year, there was not one executive session meeting of this city council to discuss whether or not land swap was a good idea or not. And if you're not putting it up for bid, if you're just swapping it, then to me, the value question really doesn't enter into it. But the preceding council never got in on the discussion. The discussion was with the city manager and the leadership, I suppose. You would know better than I, Mr. Mayor. But I think it was a failure process to not include the entire council in the discussions about whether or not the city even wanted 800 or 200 acres of land on the mountain. So I bring those points up mostly for the benefit of
research. There's not enough data available to prove one way or the other that the recreational land would negatively or positively impact the adjacent properties. I would also like to note that oftentimes assessed values do not fall in line with appraised market value.
We have discovered that.
All right. There's been an idea that's been forwarded and discussed and kind of accepted on this council that if you have a large chunk, a conglomerating big chunk, then it's in the public interest to put that land to public use, because as the market forces continue land will get chopped into smaller and smaller pieces. Is that a valid idea? Because I'm pretty sure that was what Mr. McMurray had in mind. He wanted to keep a large piece that could be in public use. So is there any way to measure that? Is that some kind of crazy idea that we're operating on here? Because it makes sense to me. Because I remember when we were discussing buying a conference center downtown, Councilman Hopkins made a point. We're talking about getting a big chunk of land in the downtown. That is hard to do, and the possibility of doing that with reasonable cost is going to only get smaller through time. So is there something to that?
That's probably correct from your standpoint. From an appraisal standpoint, we need to look at what's the highest and best use. Your scenario would be a value in use, because you say we're going to use the bigger property and hook it to this or hook it to that. We looked at it as, one of the possibilities of this property, not particularly that, oh, good, we got a big 200-acre parcel, but we got 200 acres, what's the best use for it, which turned out to be recreation. It could be chop it up into smaller parcels, hook it to the city, biathlon.
What a crock of shit. Highest and best use, a developer's dream.
The appraisal, there was a huge adjustment made for size because it is 200-acre parcel. And some of the comparables were smaller because they're just not large properties on the mountain itself very often.
Which would raise the per acre cost.
I'm sorry?
Which would raise the per acre estimate if you were comparing with smaller properties.
Yes.
Smaller properties tend to be more valuable per acre.
Correct.
That doesn't even make sense.
Other questions from Mr. Hill?
Smaller properties would be more value?
Okay, thank you.
What a load of pig shit.
Anyone else care to speak against this land swap?
Sounded like he was speaking for it. How many times, how long are we going to spend on that?
Person asked the question.
Sure.
Who's maintaining, or who gets the mineral rights? Did Lycola keep those, or did they pass with Nicky?
Can we answer that
That's an
question?
important thing, is all of that land is filled. The Nicky water is set, pressure now, basically now.
Okay.
They're ready to build.
Mr. Trember.
If you're getting that property,
So your question is, who owns the mineral rights? Let's get an answer. Thank you.
I think the citizens.
Okay.
Your Honor, I don't know the answer to that question without looking deeper into the deeds for the property, but I believe that the deeds were warranty deeds that conveyed the entire property. I can't make that representation without taking 15, 20 minutes to go look into that further, but I believe they were full warranty deeds that conveyed the entire property. If Mr. Tyler is here, he may be able to answer that as well.
If not, someone else could purchase the mineral rights. And can you answer that question, Mr. Tatter?
What I can tell you is that the deed that's proposed to be used transferring the property to the city is a warranty deed of all interest that East Elkhorn Ranch has to the property, and that there's never been a reservation by East Elkhorn or its predecessors, owned by Mr. McMurray, to reserve the minerals. I can't tell you who actually owns the minerals under that property, though. So much of Wyoming, as you know, has a separated estate where the surface is owned separately from the underlying minerals. So it could be federal minerals on the property. It could have been somebody else long ago that severed the minerals, but we're transferring you everything that East Elkhorn Ranch has.
Okay, thank you.
So that could be the case with the water rights too.
No, water rights go with the property that the water has been beneficially used on or for.
Yeah, it has to be
Currently, there is no beneficial use of water on that property. There's water that flows through the property, but it has not been put to beneficial use. Could it be put to beneficial use? I believe so. I believe you could establish a storage reservoir at the bottom portion of this property, because it's kind of a natural drainage of all the surrounding terrain. And you could have filed the state engineer for beneficial use to appropriate that water right and have it for future benefit and use. But currently, there's none on the property.
Other questions, Mr. Tyler, about the?
I have a question.
Thank you.
So if the minerals have been severed, is there a possibility that somebody claim the minerals on it? Shouldn't that be something that somebody should think about?
Is that something we can get an answer to, Mr. Trumbull?
That's always a policy consideration for council. On the other hand, as the property was being discussed in the real estate trades, the purpose of the city of Casper was to get recreational ski trails, not to try to gain mineral rights.
So we could get a mine there if somebody has the minerals on it?
Okay.
Anybody?
Can you do some research on this? Sir?
We can do some research on that if you would like to postpone the vote on this till another meeting. Until then, if you don't, then you'll get the answer and the decision's already been made.
I think we can handle that in our discussion then. Thank you. Mr. Patterson?
The answer, I mean, maybe as a curiosity, we can do some research there, but Elkhorn is transferring everything that they own and possess to the city.
Right.
And so if it was split previously, if it's owned by the feds, there's nothing that this council can do to impact that or influence that, and there's nothing that Mr. McMurray or Elkhorn Ranch could have done. That happened long ago, if it is even a consideration.
Right.
We're getting 100% of what they purchased.
By superintendent, we should know that part of it. For the future, talking about the future, who wants a mine up there on the...
Sir, if you would like to speak in opposition, you can come forward to the podium. Okay, but we don't just take questions from the audience like this. I'm sorry.
I didn't hear a particularly good answer.
Okay. Anyone else care to speak in opposition? Okay. There being no others to speak for or against the trade of the real property, I now declare the public hearing closed. Please read the resolution by title only.
A resolution authorizing a real estate trade agreement and other necessary documents for the trade of city-owned property with property owned by East Elkhorn Ranch LLC and Casper Redevelopment Company LLC.
Chair would entertain a motion to adopt the resolution just read. So moved. Moved by Vice Mayor Sandoval, seconded by Councilman Hopkins. Discussion.
Your Honor.
Is that fire again?
That was well planned.
Councilman Mandel.
I have a question for our city manager. If we were to do this, will there be any cost to the city in terms of having to get additional staff to monitor activities up there or additional equipment for grooming trails?
Thank you. Good question. We have a great relationship with the county. They maintain property that we currently own that is of higher use. The campground's immediately to the west of this parcel. And the relationship we have is that we don't charge them for using that as a campground, and they don't charge us for maintaining it. And so I would presume that this would be the same relationship once it's in our possession. And this is raw ground. This would take minimal effort. The trails, the Nordic ski trails that are cut in there by the group that cuts them in for the other areas. And so, no, I don't see any cost.
Thank you. Who's next? Mr. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. What exactly is the lease agreement with the county? We let them use what we have and they maintain what they have, or how does that work?
Make it sound a little too formal to suggest that there's a lease agreement. I don't believe there is a document that exists. We haven't been able to find it. But there's a relationship that exists long-term that the city owns a lot of land over there. The county maintains a lot of that land in our behalf. It's for public recreation. The county doesn't sweat it, and we don't either.
So for the benefit of the concerns of citizen Goodenough, are we going to do some fire mitigation? Maybe work with the county on fire mitigation, clearing the underbrush? et cetera?
Haven't thought much of that.
We bought a fire truck. We
Really?
ordered the
Yeah,
county
Casper.
fire department up on the mountain for that very purpose. So, nothing happens.
If I might, a couple of points. First of all, I think we have to remember, this is a non-cash deal.
Right.
And if you have a willing folk that wants to trade something to another willing folk, there's no money transpired. We're looking to make sure that the taxpayers get a reasonable deal. It appears from the numbers that we are getting more than a reasonable deal. So
It
I think
appears.
at that point, whatever the actual dollar value really
Appearances
makes
can
no
be
difference.
deceiving, and this one sounds like
Second
it
point,
is.
we've heard some discussion about fire issues tonight. And I contend that if you're building a trail to ski on, you're cutting down trees, you're making what could be considered a natural fire break. So in fact, we are improving that property from a firefighting standpoint. So,
Other comments?
Don't pass it.
Mr.
You
Pacheco?
got fluff, fire,
Just a comment in
and
the sense
weak
of one of
appraisals.
the things that has been said multiple times is that there's some secret deals going on and so forth. And one of the things that I don't know if the public knows, but our mayor and our city manager welcomes us in a cycle to be able to go to leadership meetings. And so we are involved with the leadership. And so either I'm really stupid or
I'll
I can't
buy
sense
it.
what's
You're
going
really
on.
stupid.
There's just undercurrents, secret deals going on this council.
Thou
And
does
so
protest
what we're
too
trying
much.
to do here is do something good for this community. When I ran for city council, it was about the idea to improve this community, and I'll continue to fight for that. But the undercurrent to understand that these 9 members, the 8 other members on this council, work together. Sometimes we disagree, but I cannot take anymore that there's this undercurrent of this council, and there's not. We're
You're
trying
so
to work
full of
together to do
shit,
some
it's
good
running
stuff.
out of your
If you
ears,
feel
boy.
like there is, come talk to us. There is an open door policy. Every single one of us.
Yeah, you
And
just
this is
spent
a
2
good
hours
thing.
listening
And
to
I
the
think this is
pros.
something that we can do
You
for
got
this
fire,
community.
fluff,
You're darn right,
and
Sam.
no
This is a great thing for
appraisals.
us.
But there's no backroom deals? Who the fuck are you kidding?
Has been completed, so other discussion amongst council, Mr. Vice Mayor.
I just want to thank the McMurrays because this is the sweetest deal ever made, and it's for the public. It's keeping the top of the mountain from turning into ranchette